Hi, boys and girls. It's Mr. Yates and Miss Garcia. And in this video, we're going to be going over the Spiral Math answers for Thursday, April 26th. No, today's the 26th. It would be Thursday, April 23rd. And in this video, we'll start with Miss Garcia going over the odds, and I'll be going over the evens. What I always like to do is I'll put together my answer and then my work. Boys and girls, I haven't seen some of your Spiral Maths directly, but I've been really impressed with some of the work I've been seeing with some of your homework when we were showing the word problems. Some people are like, I'm going to do a shout out for Lauren. Lauren, you've been doing a really awesome job with the neatness on your work, so I wanted to give you a shout out for that. So I hope that you're doing that also, boys and girls, for your Spiral Math, because Spiral Math is a lot easier to check when you're doing it neatly. Let's go ahead and we'll go over number one, Ms. Garcia.
Alrighty, so number one says add, and they want us to add 3.1 plus 1.34. So for your guys' answer sentence, you're more than welcome to do the number sentence, or you guys can say the sum is. So our very first step when we add decimals is to line them up. So we don't want to be hearing that song.
No.
So go ahead and line them up, and you can go ahead, if it'll help you guys can annex a 0 at the end of that 3.1 if it'll help you, but if not, no, it is not necessary. So let's go ahead and add. So 4 plus 0 is 4, 3 plus 1 is 4, and 3 plus 1 is 4. So, wow, that is
Look at that.
a lot of fours. But, so our sum is going to be 4 and 44 hundredths.
All right. Great. On number two, the question is, in which number below does 4 have a value of 40,000? Now, interestingly, they all have a 4 in them, but only one of them is a value of 40,000. And when I look at these, the only one that actually does is right here, 345,629. So that 4 has a value of 40,000. So the number, and you can say the number is the number in which, and I'll tell you, this is awesome if you guys did this whole answer sentence. The number in which the 4, and I said the number in which the 4 equals, you could also say has a value of 40,000. Either one is okay. Is, and I'm going to write down the number that it is. Don't say A. I really would prefer that you write down the number. So I'm going to write down 345,629. And a period. You're doing answer sense. I'm proud of you guys. That's great. Doing your personal best, making sure that the answer is fully answered. Let's go ahead and go on to number 3, Ms. Garcia.
Number 3 says, locate and name the point at, in parentheses, 9, 0. So remember, my famous saying, cut the grass and let it grow. So
Great way to remember.
We always want to start with our answer sentence. So it's at, it says to name and, I'm so sorry, I can't remember what it said. It was like find name, right? So
locate and name the point at 9, 0.
Okay, so you could say for your answer sentence, the point at, and then in parentheses 9, 0 is, and using my handy dandy saying, it looks like if we go into our x-axis and we find our 9, and since our y is 0, we just trimmed that grass, guys. It is not growing very much because it's at 0. So the point that it is, you should have put down I, because it's right on that 9, but you don't go up any for your y-axis, so it's just there, chilling on that 9 on the x-axis. So yeah.
All right. So we'll go ahead and take a look at number 4 right now. On this one, we're going to subtract. We're going to choose the difference in simplest form. I'll go ahead and write out an answer sentence right here. 2 1/8 subtract 1 7/8 is going to equal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll draw this vertically so I can solve it at 2 1/8 minus 1 7/8. I definitely want to circle my operation just to make sure I don't forget what it was. I'm going to be subtracting. Good news is that the denominators are the same, so that's good. I don't have to change the denominators, but I got a problem. And I just noticed this when I was writing this down. I look at this and 1 numerator on top is smaller than 7, the numerator on the bottom. Oh, that means what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to add another 1 whole to 1/8 so that I create a fraction that's improper that allows me to subtract. What I'll do is I'll borrow 8/8 from 2. I'm going to take 1 away from 2, so I'm going to cross this out. I'm going to leave 1 right here. I'm going to take 1 with me over here to add to this 1/8. But I can't really add 1 and 1/8 together like that. I need to change this 1 into a fraction. Well, I want to use the same denominator here, so I'm going to change this 1 into 8/8. Now I can add that here to 1/8 plus 8/8. Why am I doing this? Because I want to make sure that I'm able to subtract my fractions. I'm going to take 1, which is right over here, and I'm going to add 1 plus 8 is 9. And we don't add the denominator, so it becomes 1 and 9/8. Now I'm going to subtract. I didn't change this 1. I didn't change this fraction. I'm going to leave it as 7/8. My subtraction is 1 and 9/8, which is an improper fraction here, and that enables me to subtract the 9 from the 7 because 9 is bigger than 7. Now I'm going to go ahead and take 9 minus 7 is equal to 2. I'm not going to subtract my denominators. I'm going to leave them alone. So now I have 2/8. When I subtract 1 minus 1, I leave with 0. I can just leave it blank. I don't even need to put 0 right there. Now there's one more thing I always want to do, and they even emphasize it right here in the directions. Choose the correct difference in simplest form. Well, I know these are both even numbers, so at least I can just divide both of these by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now I have 1/4, and that's going to be my difference. 2 1/8 minus 7 1/8 is equal to 1/4. I'm going to go ahead now and move on to number 5. Okay, Ms. Garcia.
Okay, so number 5 says, what is the volume of the storage building? So for your guys' answer sentence, you guys should have had something similar to the volume of the storage building is, and then you guys should have put a blank for your answer. But then we always want to remember that when we are finding the volume of something, it's always going to be whatever unit they give us cubed. So it's going to be feet, because all of that storage building looks like it is going to be using feet. And then we always want to make sure to put our 3, which is our symbol for cubed. Perfect. So there's going to be our answer sentence. So is how we find the volume of this. This is what we call a composite figure. So the easiest way to find the volume of this figure, or is the way that you could do it, is I just took, your annotations are going to come in handy here. So, yeah, so you can split your shape or your figure into 2 different shapes. Perfect, just like Mr. Yates is doing. So your the little rectangles on top, that looks like it's on top of it right there, that is going to be our figure 1. And then the bottom one, the bigger one, is going to be our figure 2.
Let me go and I'll label these, Ms. Garcia, so everyone kind of gets an idea what's going on here.
Okay.
So this little block, this top, this small rectangular prism on top, you're going to call what?
That's going to be our figure A.
Okay, let me go ahead and change this to black so it's easier to see. Oh. All right. All right.
And then our bottom rectangular prism, the bigger one, is going to be our figure B.
You like my new language I'm typing?
It's the best. You should create a whole separate class just to learn how to read tech lingo. Okay, so our very first step is going to be finding the volume of our figure A. So our formula for both our figure A and our figure B is going to be length, which is side to side, our width, which is front to back, and our height, which is top to bottom. So our volume equals length times width times height. So looking at our figure A, our length, which is side to side, is going to be that 16 feet that's on like the back part of it. So our 16 is going to be just so, is going to be our length. Now, our width, boys and girls, which is going to be our front and back, notice how they don't give us a width for this particular figure. But if we look closely, if you guys see that 10 that is actually on our figure B, the length of that 10 right there,
Let me change the color so it's a little bit easier for everyone to see.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go. So that 10 right there is actually the same exact size as the width of the smaller one.
Oh.
So our width, boys and girls, is going to be that 10 right there, because those are equal to one another. So our width is going to be 10. Now our height for this one is going to be, so for this one, you have to do some math to figure out. So our height for that little part that Mr. Yates is showing us right there. So looking at the entire figure, the left side right there, yeah, just like where Mr. Yates is showing, that entire side right there is 15 feet. But we only want the length of that small little portion. So is what we have to do is we have to look at the height of, figure out what the bigger part of that 15 is, and it's going to be that 12 that Mr. Yates is pointing to. So we want to subtract 12 from 15. So we want to do 15 minus 12, which gives us 3. So we took the entirety height of the entire figure, and we took the height of figure B to find out what that little height is of our figure A. So 3 feet is going to be our height of our figure A. So now we want to go ahead and solve this out. So 10 times 3 gives you 30, and 30 times 16 gives you, I did not write it down, so we're gonna have to just, do it this way, and calculator, because I can't do it in my head. 30 times 16 gives you 480. So if that's what you guys got for your first figure, you would be correct.
So that's,
oh wait, we are done.
And that's 400 cubic feet per volume?
Yes, 480 feet cubed. We're done. So we found the volume of our first figure, but now we have to find the volume of our second figure.
All right.
So figure B is going to be the bigger one on the bottom. And so for this one, we're going to still use the same exact formula, length times width times height. All right, so for our length, which is going to be side to side, it is going to be our entirety, the blue line that Mr. Yates is showing us. So for this one, boys and girls, we have to do some math, because if you see where that 18 feet is, that gives us the length for only a portion of our total length. So we want to take that 18 and we want to add it to our 16, because, boys and girls, that will give us the entire length of our height. So when you add your 18 and your 16 together, you should get 34 feet. Perfect. So our length is going to be 34. And our width is going to be front to back. Now, if you remember what I said earlier, our width is going to be that 10 feet for both of our figures. So, because it's front to back, so our width is going to be 10, and our height is going to be 12. Now, when you guys multiply that out, you should get a total of 4,080. And then remember, since we are doing volume, it should be feet cubed. So in order to figure out the total volume of both of those for the entire figure, you want to go ahead and add your volume from your figure A and your volume from your figure B. So our figure A was 480 feet, and our figure B was 4,000.
Oh, Ms. Garcia, hold on 1 second. I just want to make sure I line everything up. I was worried that I was going to line them up inappropriately and thus trigger the song about lining up my numbers. So let me make sure I line up my digits correctly.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect. All right, so then when you add those together, you should get 4,560. And remember, since it is volume, it's always going to be feet cubed. So for your answer sentence, it should read, the volume of the storage building is 4,560 feet cubed.
All right, great. Oh, that was a long one, Ms. Garcia. Whew, lots of good detail in that one. I'm sure that was a challenge for a lot of these kids today, so it's good to see you explain it. All right, we're going to move on to number 6. I'm going to put my answer on this other page and my work. And we're going to go ahead and move down to see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to describe the attributes of the quadrilateral, and then I'm going to classify the attributes, classify the quadrilateral based on its attributes. Well, I look at this one. One thing I notice about it right now is that the opposite sides, the top and bottom sides are congruent. The left and right sides are congruent. The top and bottom sides are parallel, and the left and right sides are parallel. So I'm going to look for a description that's like that. Well, opposite sides are congruent and parallel. We call it a parallelogram. That totally is the correct answer based on what I noticed here. So I want you to do this. You just write it down like this, the opposite sides and please make sure you're spelling everything correctly, are congruent and parallel. I know it's really easy since we're not in class to kind of forget about spelling, but it really doesn't matter, especially as you guys get knowing that you're coming back to school and you're going to be in 6th grade, spelling will count. The opposite sides are congruent and parallel, comma, it is a parallelogram. Parallelogram. Good. I want to make sure I spelled it correct. All right, let's move on to number 7.
Number 7 says, classify the triangle based on its sides. Boys and girls, make sure that you're paying attention to your key words here. It's going to be sides, not angles, but sides. Whoa, I haven't seen a filled in dot. There we go. That's new. All right. So for your guys' answer sentence, you should say, based on its sides, the triangle is a or an, and then leave a blank for what kind of triangle it is, and then right triangle.
But it's not a right triangle.
Yes, not R-I-G-H-T, but W-R-I-T-E. Okay, so let's take a look at our triangle. So it looks like all sides are 16 feet. So it doesn't have the symbol of showing us that that it's a right triangle, because plus to identify something as a right triangle, that's looking at its angles. We're not doing that. We're looking at the sides. And then our next one is an isosceles, which an isosceles triangle is when two sides are the same or congruent. And nope, for this one, all three are. So it's not that one. So our scaling is when you have an angle that is greater than 90 degrees, but that will also be looking at its angles. We're not looking at the angles, we're looking at the sides. So let's move on to letter D. And letter D says equilateral. And an equilateral triangle, boys and girls, is when all sides are congruent. That would be correct. So the answer for this one is going to be D, equilateral. So for your answer sentence, you guys should have, based on its sides, the triangle is an equilateral triangle.
All right, great. We're going to move on to our final one, number 8. Number 8, boys and girls, it asks you to replace x with a number so the fractions are equivalent. So what I'll do is I'll start right here by putting in the number sense. 9/10 is equivalent to 36 over a mystery number, which I'll leave blank for right now. Or you could put x equals if you're doing it that way too. So x would be the number that goes into here. I'm going to go ahead and write this again here so I can show you how I figure this out. Now, when I'm making an equivalent fraction, I'm basically multiplying the number on the top and the numerator with the same number that I would at the bottom with the denominator. I already have a top numerator already created. I have to multiply something by 9 to get that numerator. So when I think about my math facts, the only one that works is going to be 9 times 4 is equal to 36. Whatever I do on the top when I multiply, I have to do on the bottom. So I multiply on the top by 4, so I'm going to multiply on the bottom also by 4. That'll get me 10 times 4 is 40. And that's my equivalent denominator. So now I have an equivalent fraction that's equivalent to 9/10, which is 36/40. I could write it like this: 9/10 equals 36 over 40, or I could say just x equals 40. Either one is going to work. Now, boys and girls, I'd like you to remember to go ahead and write in your, or go ahead and open up on the next part of your agenda this survey for SpiroMath, just to let us know that you finished this and to let us know if there's any problems you had. That's really, really important because it helps us to track how well you're doing with your SpiroMath and to see if there's any areas where you're having problems. So we really do appreciate it when you do that. If you could go ahead and do that, awesome. And thanks for checking your SpiroMath. We'll see you again for our next SpiroMath video. Bye, boys and girls.